If you're ambitious but lazy, you're in luck, because ambition isn't really something many people have. A lot of people are content in life and they don't really strive for anything more. Ambition is something you can utilize, but if you're watching this video, you're obviously also lazy, at least you acknowledge that. So how do we overcome this? Well, you should always start with why. Why are you doing this? So when times get tough, you should always remember your why. And if you don't have a why yet, that's probably why you're lazy. It can be difficult to work on something that you don't really understand why you're even working on it. So start with your why and remember that you're lucky you have ambition. We can work on the other part, but if you don't have ambition, life is not going to be easy and you're not going to do anything special. So if you start with why, you have something to look back at when you lack motivation to do the things that you need to do to become successful. And while we are on the topic of motivation, remember that motivation is a bit strange. It doesn't work the way we think it does. We think motivation will just come to us and then we do action, but in reality, motivation follows action. It's the other way around. So if you want to get something done, you should start small, because you need to overcome this resistance of actually starting. It's our brain telling us, no, you don't need to do this task. You can just lay down and do nothing. It's okay. It's going to be too difficult to start this one, so don't even bother. So if you're lacking motivation, it makes sense because you're not taking any action. It's okay to start small and take things step by step. And there's no shame in just doing a 2-minute writing session. I'm sorry if there's kids in the background. I am near a playground, so. And remember that if you start small and you overcome that task, you tell your brain that it's okay, we can do this. Even if it is a small task, you will build momentum and eventually you will do bigger tasks and do more stuff. And at some point, you're not lazy anymore. You get things done. But then we need to talk about grit, because you need grit to be able to start something, to start anything, to do anything actually. And developing grit is not very easy. It has to do with the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but if you've ever watched Huberman talk about this, you would know it's a very interesting part of your brain that deals with grit and overcoming difficult things. And it's actually a brain area that will grow in size the more difficult stuff you do. And it's very important to differentiate here, because if you actually want to go for a long run, it's not gonna increase your anterior mid-cingulate cortex, because you actually want to do it. Even though it is difficult, you need to do things that you don't want to do. So for example, for me, sometimes I really don't want to go for a cold plunge, but I do it anyway, and over time that should grow my anterior mid-cingulate cortex. So why is this important? Well, it's important to have this in mind when you do things that you don't want to do, because growing that part of your brain will make it easier over time to do these difficult things that you don't want to do. And becoming successful in anything means you need to do fucking boring ass work for hours a day, weeks on end, months on end, years on end, without expecting any outcome. It's doing the work that no one else wants to do, and you can only achieve that if you can suffer through these things that you don't want to do. And you can only really do that if you grow your anterior cingulate cortex. But I know it seems very overwhelming to start that new thing, but that's because we make it something big in our heads. It doesn't need to be. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, start small and break down your big goals into smaller goals. So for me, making this YouTube video, for example, it meant that I had to write down my talking points, and then I needed to figure out where I wanted to film this video, and then it required me to film it, and after this I'm gonna edit it. That took some friction to overcome, but taking it one step at a time, instead of saying I need to make a new video, made it so much easier for me to do. And exactly that, doing small things over time will compound. And what that means is that one workout in the gym will not make you a bodybuilder, and saving that few $100s 1 month is not going to make you rich. Over time, things compound, and in the beginning, they are so small that you don't see anything. And it can be discouraging, but if you just stick to it and keep going, things will compound. And that is something that I often forget, and that is rewarding myself for my effort and not my results. I can often be very mean to myself over not reaching the goals that I've set for myself, and that is unhealthy, because you need to give yourself some praise sometimes, and That can be difficult because we are ambitious, so why are we not working more or doing more or succeeding more? So reward yourself for effort, not just results. This helps build a positive feedback loop, and over time you will get better at this. It's going to be very difficult in the beginning, but I promise me it gets better. But this also means you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Doing these things is not easy, and to be honest, it never will be, because you will grow in your tasks and you will do more over time. But that's the point. The point is to never really be comfortable. Because if you get comfortable, life gets too easy and you get lazy again. This is what I fell for. Once I had some success with my business, I kind of just outsourced most of the work and didn't really do much for a couple of years. But that was unhealthy, because you need a purpose, as we spoke about earlier in the video. In your life, you need a purpose to do something more. That's why all these businessmen who sell their companies get into depression. We are built to do something more. But to be honest, what I needed was a circle of friends who did more than me, who were in the space that I wanted to be in. People don't really talk about how difficult it is to find friends who are doing something that you want to do. A great example is finding a run club where they are just slightly faster than you, because if you are in a run club where people are running faster than you and every time you run with them, it's really difficult to stick with the group. It will challenge you to become better so that you can get to the same level as they are. Now to something interesting, because this is kind of frowned upon to fake who you are, but I think it's important. You need to fake it till you make it. What this means is that when you can visualize the person that you want to become, if you think about it, you know what you want to be, productive, fit, rich, whatever it may be. So what does that person do? Do they wake up early? Do they work 16 hours a day? What do they do? If you can visualize that, you can try to act like that person. And over time, you actually become that person, because you do all the things necessary to be that person. So it's not even fake anymore. You are that person. Lastly is something that I absolutely am terrible at, and that is balancing self-compassion. If I don't do something that I set out to do, I am really tough on myself. I will beat myself down and think about it before I go to sleep, and it will prevent me from going to sleep because I'm so guilty of not doing the things that I set out to do. But here we should remember that we are humans. We slip and we fail. Things go wrong and we have bad days. That's part of the journey. So you should be kind to yourself when you fall short, but firm enough that when you slip, you get back on track, and don't miss 2 days in a row. That's really important, because that's a new routine. That's a negative feedback loop, and we don't want to get into that. So if you skip a run, skip a workout, skip work for a day, it's okay. Just remember to get back on track tomorrow. But all of this is simply about building better habits. So let me leave you with a book recommendation. I have 2 favorite books of all time. One is How to Win Friends and Influence People, but I will talk about that in another video. But for this video, I think Atomic Habits is perfect, because Atomic Habits is one of these books where you will leave with a plan. And to me, it's one of the greatest books of all time. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Get working.